Now, it's been abundantly clear that the return of the Pokémon franchise is finally here. We've had 20 years of Pokémon, and with that kind of an anniversary, it's no wonder that Nintendo, Game Freak, and the Pokémon Company have gone all out in delivering us the Pocket Monster goods. We've had it in various forms: re-releases of Pokémon Red and Blue on the Virtual Console, the insurgence of the wildly popular app Pokémon Go, the amazing conclusion to one of the best seasons of the anime, great events, and so on. It seems that the timing is perfect, because the long-awaited Pokémon Sun and Moon are finally here, just in time for the 20th anniversary. It's changing up the formula in a couple of big ways, just in time. This is our blocked content review of the Nintendo 3DS game, Pokémon Sun and Moon. What strikes me most when firing up the game is how realized and unique the world of Alola is. The Hawaiian setting works very well with the happy-go-lucky vibe of a Pokemon game, and also gives us almost more swim trunks and bikinis than we can handle. It's really interesting to see just how much of Hawaiian culture Game Freak was able to include in the game. Not only tropical islands, but also very wealthy resorts and the darkest of caves. There's a little bit of everything, and it feels a lot more lived in, with kids and adults traveling with their Pokemon next to them at all turns. It feels like a new, living, breathing world. Sometimes the vibes reminded me of a weird blend between Super Mario Sunshine's Isle Delfino and some of the islands in The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. It helps that you can now discover every inch of the island without being constrained to the diagonal pad. You can freely walk around now. The camera sometimes zooms in close to the action or pans out to show you something like a big city. What I loved about this is that there is a constant change in terrain that feels so new. Just running up a mountain or avoiding a certain doom-spelling path felt very new for a Pokemon game. Gone are the Pokemon League battles. Now you'll be working your way through the world for the Island Challenges, a series of cool battles and minigames that will have you travel across all the different Alola islands to conquer them all. It seems like it's all the rage on these islands, and everyone seems to be very aware that the Island Challenges are where you truly grow up, become yourself, and become one with your Pokemon. It's a neat change, and this is what we call a break from the formula. These things are a good thing. It gives you the same sandbox that you've always had, but with a couple of noticeable twists on a different playing field. Yeah, you'll fight your way across the Alola Islands, and it feels fresh, but also suits the setting of the game really well. That's one of the biggest takeaways from this game, I feel. The developers let the setting of the game hugely impact not only the Pokemon that appear in it, but also the way that it works. The trials are something fun and sometimes scary to work towards, and it feels even more rewarding as you get flung into a bigger adventure at every turn, meeting new island captains and discovering the history of the islands. There is a big focus on story this time around, and I was very excited to discover a whole new, bigger Pokemon story. It's not only Pokemon battling you'll be doing on the islands. There's a surprising big variety of activities, including riding Pokemon for scavenger hunts, races, and a little bit of Pokemon snapping. And those of you who follow blog content know how crazy we are about that game, so it's nice to see it come back, even though its ultimate appearance in the game is quite a letdown in terms of both quality and quantity. I've completed the game after about 35 hours, and that is a lot of time. To me, this is what an RPG should be. It shouldn't take years or months to finish even, but it should instead be intriguing all the way through. With its gameplay changes and, challenges in place, this game does that all in spades. The battling you do in the game comes with sort of a reworked battle system. This time, there is a lot more information at hand regarding what certain moves do, as well as seeing how effective they will be in the battles. I think this kind of change, it divided the Pokemon fanbase, but to me, it is exciting that Nintendo is daring enough to change it up like this. It also makes multiplayer battles more exciting, because as you probably think, suddenly the playing field is a lot more even. And it's worth noting that things like HMs are finally gone from the series for good, hopefully, as I always felt that they should, and replaced by actually physically riding your Pokemon through the world of Alola. This feels much more interactive, and it makes me excited to see what kind of Pokemon rides we could see in the future. flying your Charizard across the world or maybe riding a Tauros. It all feels very new and it looks amazing. I'm very curious to see how this would develop in future games. There's also Pokémon Refresh, which is sort of a rebooted version of Pokémon and Me, where you take care of your Pokémon sometimes after a battle or whenever you choose. But I won't get into that much. Basically, you can groom and fix up your Pokémon after battle and pet them for a job well done. Yeah, it's about as exciting as it sounds, but I know there are a ton of you who will spend hours with just this function, and it's fully fleshed out and realized, so you guys will be able to have fun with your Pokémon and form a bigger bond during Pokémon Refresh, and that feels very fresh. Anyway, so let's talk Pokémon, right? I mean, the actual new Pokémon you'll be finding in the game. Now, of course, we have to mention, the new Alolan forms of Pokémon, like an icy white Vulpix or the much debated weird Diglett and Dugtrio with crazy blonde hairdos. It's weird, but I like this concept, and they try really hard to have it make sense in this world. But it also sometimes comes across as Nintendo needlessly grabbing hold of that first generation audience. Sometimes I wondered what kind of impact this world would have had if there were no old Pokemon in it at all, but having their appearances slightly change was still fun to see. Now, to get to the new Pokemon, although we all know that Rowlet is for sure the best thing about this game, I've got to say that the roster of Pokemon, although a pretty low amount for series standards, is really nice. Colorful, unique Pokemon that never go into the weird Garbator the garbage Pokemon territory. Well, maybe with Palisand a little bit, the sandcastle Pokemon, but even that fit quite well with the vibrant beaches of the island. Favorites include the final evolution of Rowlet, Decidueye, the amazing Komala, the koala Pokemon, Why Does Everything I Touch Die, Beware, and the mysterious Mimikyu, the Pikachu imitation Pokemon. You know, rounding it all up, this generation of Pokemon introduces some very cool new concepts of Pokemon, even going as far to introduce the Ultra Beasts. This has a big influence on the story of the game at hand, but also introduces something new that isn't really Pokemon, but still feels very well at home for this game, and I'm very happy that they chose to include something else, something bigger, something out there. And I have to mention that, we've got these trailers that were trickling in from, week to week, not even month to month, but literally every week we would get a new Pokémon Sun and Moon trailer, and sometimes it felt a little bit like too much information. And I gotta be honest, having almost all the Pokemon being spoiled before the release of the game, I wanted to look away, but it's of course my job not to, and to get all this new information that comes in. But I really hope that Nintendo would have kind of approached it a little bit more as they do with a Super Smash Bros. Game, where they really hide the characters until they really can't anymore because the game is already out there, because that way we can just hide ourselves from the internet when the game comes out. But now if you introduce all these Pokemon and all these Alolan forms and all these new ways to play in the trailers, we will already exactly know what we'll be getting in the package. And sometimes that is a good thing, but it's not a good thing when you know exactly what you're getting, the exact Pokemon, and having lines in the trailer like, there's a lot more to explore or to discover in the Pokemon world. Well, there isn't really if you spoil everything in the trailers. So if I could, pinpoint one thing that I would want to change going forward with this franchise, I would say, hey, those trailers are awesome. I like having, week-to-week updates on where the Pokemon franchise is going. But please do not spoil every single Pokemon, because now that we know which Pokemon are in the game, there wasn't really all that much that Nintendo hasn't revealed yet. And I think they could have done a lot better job at that. But the Pokemon that are in this game are cute, and they introduce some new species that we've never seen, and they kind of do away with all the spiky, weird goodness that we've come to see in the previous generations, and kind of go back to formula, as you can see with a very cool starter Pokemon. So I am satisfied, but I would want a little bit less information on the next time. Here comes the verdict. In closing, I feel that Pokémon Sun and Moon does something that is pretty unique in the world of Nintendo, let alone Pokémon. It truly reinvents a couple of key things about the franchise, as, Pokémon did with Pokémon Go for a wider audience. But Sun and Moon does it both for story purposes and to propel the franchise into bigger, broader directions. I'm happy to say I never really got bored with the game, although I did get lost a fair share of times. It's a cute, new environment, and you will get lost in this, and it's hard to think that we'll be getting back to the traditional style of Pokemon leagues, that kind of way of Pokemon after this. Pokemon Sun and Moon reinvents the franchise in a couple of small, noticeable ways, and even though we all want that big, open-world, multiplayer, console version of Pokemon, this reinvention needed to happen first before anything like that would be possible in the future. I'm excited about where the franchise could go from here on out. The focus of story and the theme of tradition was something that I never really expected from a Pokemon game. It feels very warm and very much like Pokemon. I'm very happy that the developers experimented. If you try new things and changes are a lot higher, you'll find something genius. Block Content rates Pokemon Sun and Moon with a 9.2 out of 10. For more information on Pokemon Sun and Moon, Pokemon Go, and all other Pokemon and Nintendo news, including Nintendo Switch and upcoming Mario games, you know where you need to be. We also have a lot more reviews for blockbuster films, releases, and other games. If you like what we do at Block Content, please hit that subscribe button and become part of our Block family. Hey, we'll see you guys next time.